Hi, my name is Ben Bush, and this is my third year review at Auburn University, Department of Industrial Design. The contents of this presentation follow the same sequence as the dossier, but in the interest of time, I'll highlight certain components as we go. Before I get too far along, I'd like to express my intentions for tenure and promotion timeline. In my 10 years of instruction, Auburn has been the first to allow me to establish a research agenda. Since 70% of my appointment is teaching, I kindly ask that you would also offer me your opinion on the potential of going up for tenure and promotion next year, year 4. Also, what are the green references in the dossier? These green references are used in an effort to convey transparency. These markers show the interconnectedness between primarily my teaching and my research. They also serve as connectors between my awards and my activities, or my service and my publications. This is my teaching assignment breakdown: 70% teaching, 25% research, 5% service, and 0% outreach. Let's look into awards. The design prompt for Bright Spark 2018 was to re-envision the future of transportation. We felt like we needed to create a place that people wanted to be, and they would travel less. We pitched the idea of a more walk-friendly, consistent city, like a football tailgate, supported by more public transportation, more walking, and more community. We mapped this experience to Metro Chattanooga. Our next year challenge was to answer the question, how might we help families and students in the community thrive? We targeted our solutions toward elementary school reading, reading being a key component of learning. We angled our ideas toward children who were unable to get the one-on-one reading time that experts feel are most important. We also geared it towards students who were uninterested in the content that they were reading. This solution connected teachers, volunteers, and readers over an internet platform and featured a scavenger hunt that helped students connect reading to real-world applications. Our IDSA Student Merit Representative from 2018, Elizabeth Boyd, was featured in the winter issue of Innovation magazine. The next year, Michael Bridgers had his senior work featured in the same IDSA magazine. Both Student Merit Award winners were outcomes from the internal student merit competition that I host each spring. 2 students from my 2018 Open Studio were recognized in the European Product Design Awards. Aaron Morris and Michael Bridgers won bronze for their opioid addiction intervention, Light, and Drew Applegate and David Stewart won a silver for the electric-assisted charcoal grill called Ignite. As a part of a special problems class conducted with Jared Wyndham and myself, our student work was featured in Wanted Design in Brooklyn, New York. Here, Elizabeth Boyd project was selected by Core 77 as being one of the best of the best. 2 more of my students were recognized in my Open Studio from 2018. Mark Dorsey and Van Knight were of 12 students selected from across the country to display their work at their International Housewares Association exhibition in Chicago. I won second place in the photo exhibition that figured an image of a 2-ton silk loom turned coffee table. And lastly, I was awarded the SGA Outstanding Faculty Member in 2019. Teaching. These are the courses that I teach on a typical yearly basis. Similar to you, I teach a studio and a lecture course each semester. Portfolio, though, has been the most consistent of all my teaching appointments. We'll start there. Bringing professionals has been a huge part of my class, not only for the practical professional advice that they bring, but also as a means for preparing students for interviews and increasing their network while still at school. The concept of storytelling has gained public importance over the last couple of years, but it's not necessarily new in terms of academic research. Adding storytelling structure has aided our students in being able to introduce their work to someone who has no pre-existing knowledge about their project. Storytelling has an element of play, but stories and games need guidelines. Asking students to show their work through the 4 lenses above have helped them choose what skill sets need to be paired with certain projects. Using this approach has been challenging. The way that I engage this class doesn't fit nicely into the lecture model, so I spend many additional hours providing one-on-one feedback so each student can have the strongest work possible. And this effort is paying off. A figure provided by Crystal Jalil says that 98% of our students who are looking for design jobs gain employment within 6 months of graduation. On to studios. I've enjoyed teaching the bookends of our curriculum. Even without teaching the junior year, I get to maintain relationship with these students through their entire stay at Auburn University. In my senior studio, I've used 3 main themes. 1, public feedback on their performance and conveying opportunities for improvement. 2, working in teams of 2 where cooperation is a must to pass a section. And 3, integrating playful elements like Monologue Mondays or Fun Day Fridays to build the students' soft skills and increase a team-like atmosphere. In the second year, I love how we triple teach, to introduce opposing views on design interpretation at such an early age. But I've also very much enjoyed being able to be a part and develop the sophomore students' experience in the study abroad course, whether it's constructing these students' first design portfolio or navigating the Celtic Sea. I've been able to give lectures, arrange design studio visits with our friend William Lee at the Design Factor, and co-lead student groups around the Milan Furniture Fair. Working with IT Carlo has been a great joy, having such a strong and continuous relationship. The outcomes from this past year were highly encouraging, with the addition of purchasing and hacking together IKEA products with teams of 6 in a 24-hour design sprint hackathon. Learn through play. This class has literally served as a testing ground for many teaching and research initiatives. Through a match, I was able to secure multiple types of digital fabrication equipment, and over the course of 2 semesters, I've gained a better understanding of how to integrate these components into our studios.
Interesting.
Because it would run through the code and then nothing would come back.
Think of it like you're reading left to right. When you press play, it checks the button. Is it in state 1? Yes, run the motor. Is it in state 0? No. So once you press it down and press stop, it stops.
Do you have to have a continuous loop, or can you set like a number of loops?
You can do it.
Computer industrial design. I feel like I've taken an ambitious approach by teaching 3 software packages in 15 weeks, but I've been delightfully surprised by the results. Instead of teaching one software package that could be updated or maybe not desired by a future employer, I teach an approach to learning software. It's the teach a person to fish opposed to give a fish. Other contributions to teaching. Shift has been a staple of my design teaching over the past 7 years. It's given me a platform where I can run workshops and issue challenges that revolve around play, games, and team building. These people have become my design family, and in doing so, have increased my network and influence across design schools nationally and internationally. I get to be an administrator, a strategist, and at the same time, I get to be very silly as we develop games and design challenges, all within an untraditional learning environment. As a part of our Shift conference in Wales, I gave the prompt that students would need to be resourceful and get their teammates out of a crash site. This team had to repurpose bike equipment and transport team members with clavicle and lower limb injuries down a steep ravine. I worked with Dr. Joel Dixon and Alabama State occupational and physical therapy students to develop educational toys for the Home of Hope orphanage in Uganda. Many of the students' concept helped fully abled and special needs children work on their mobility, positioning, and sensory skills. Integrating my Learn Through Play class helped the ASU students lower the overall footprint and weight of their designs while maintaining a high level of durability and interactivity. Working with Beretta, we were given a unique challenge to develop fitting and training aids for smaller framed athletes. To my knowledge, we are the first university in the U.S. to take on such a sponsored project. This also means that there was a lot of finessing, practically and administratively. Our students got the opportunity to see the nation's largest firearm exhibition in Las Vegas and learned a ton about the shotgun market as a whole. Alas, there are no weapons allowed on campus, so I had to be creative in how we simulated trap shooting experience on our school grounds.
No! I killed the spider.
Lastly, in this section, I wanted to touch on my teaching philosophy. There's plenty written in the dossier, but for the interest of time, I want to describe it metaphorically. Many of you are aware of my athletic background, so work with me. This is what most people see. Short pass, good catch, agility, strength, vision, and the speed to finish the play. We're very tempted to watch the ball, to only watch the star designer, the team lead. And I don't want my students to design in that way. Let me slow it down for you. He goes 80 yards in the NFL, untouched, because of the support of his systems. Others unselfishly playing their role for the greater good, excelling at their position so well that others can do their job more thoroughly. Linemen providing support, blocking 15, 20 yards down the field. Wide receivers who typically get glory, but are suspending that glory for the greater good. Even making sure that the project is carried to completion. I want my students to comprehend the value of being part of a team, to accomplish far more together than what they could do by themselves. Research. Even though it's a bit out of order, I feel it fitting to discuss my research within the context of my research agenda, and it breaks down like this. Design culture and play as a catalyst for innovation, collaborative student experiences with global impact, and motivations and obstacles of design students. Each category is a collection of article-linked publications, lectures, and papers. Let's look at design culture first, and instead of talking about all the subjects, I'll narrow it down to 4. How FIFA 2010 changed my classroom. This paper talks about using a video game template to give public critique to my students. It also talks about integrating play elements, integrating weekly events to enhance design outcomes. Serious-ish play. This workshop led students through competitive challenges and design games to form bonds and break down barriers at the beginning of the Thought at Work conference. After this conference, I was invited to come share a similar work set with the Columbus College of Art and Design, and I titled this presentation Play and Storytelling, taking the not serious very seriously. I expanded this workshop to include storytelling elements such as group narrative development, as well as using Legos as avatars to represent wicked social problems. And lastly, State of the Design Studio, a legendary panel discussion on design studio culture. I assembled 6 design faculty from around the university, and we discussed teaching pedagogy and approaches on building an excellent design studio culture. Next, collaborative student experiences with global impact, and once again, we will select 4. The 36-hour design sprint, Study Abroad Collaborative Studio. This paper was accepted for the track of Design Cultures by Proximity within the Cumulus Roma Conference, and this paper detailed the collaborative project that lecturer David Roberts and I from Sligo YT created for our Study Abroad students. Portfolio Crash Course and Leveraging Social Media at the University of Limerick. This presentation took what I learned from researching the pros and cons of social media and the design student and integrated those into my lectures on professional portfolios. The next year, I evolved this lecture to be called the Portfolio Crash Course, 23K and Bo Jackson. This presentation included discussions with Crystal Jalil that use real-life employment data to encourage students to apply for internships and start their portfolio sooner. And lastly, motivations and obstacles of design students. Grit test applied to summer semester industrial design students. I used Angela Duckworth's framework and gave the grit test to incoming summer ops students and evaluated how they performed from the beginning of semester to the end of the summer course. Designing under the influence, exploring the motivations and obstacles of young design students. I presented this paper at the AHFE in Washington, D.C., and identified and unpacked different influences that positively and negatively affected young design students. Ethics of Cross-Disciplinary Studio Critique Technique, 2 assistant design professors' perspectives. I co-wrote this document with Dr. Anna Ruth Gatlin from Interior Design, and we discussed studio culture and the ethical decisions of time allocation on critique days. And less designing, more sharpening. This paper was presented in Honolulu, Hawaii at the Hawaii International Conference on Education. It was co-authored with a UAB poetry professor, Haley Cotton, and discussed the importance of well-crafted metaphors to increase student absorption of difficult concepts. 2G, Other Research. The next 6 publications and lectures don't fit cleanly into my 3 research initiatives, but I feel like the topics are relevant and interesting. Retro-Future Design Semantics. It speaks about our second-year curriculum and how we approach teaching form in a world where more and more students are exposed to products that are rather plainer. The second is a paper detailing a project between Paul Hawley, Eric Lynn, and myself. It was presented at the annual Associated Schools of Construction International Conference in Denver, Colorado. And When Computers Force Us to Become More Human takes a timely look at computer learning and AI and speculates how instructors will respond if or when computers become strong enough to teach educational content. Following a co-authored paper, Haley Cotton invited me to come speak to her creative writing class about how stories and lifestyle branding must be embedded into modern product offerings. Based on our back-to-back wins with Brightspark, Bridge Innovate invited me to contribute to a panel discussion on design thinking and best practices. And in addition to my workshop role at Shift Design Conference, I was invited to lecture alongside an occupational therapist on our approaches to getting the most of our students, or in her case, patients. Exhibitions. The first item shows the family of individuals work developed by Shay Tillman, Shuman Zhang, and myself. It was featured in the annual showcase at the Jewel Collins Museum of Fine Art. Want to Design is an international exhibition that featured work from our special problems class that Jared Wyndham and I ran. Lastly, a range of 3D paper crafts are on display in Wallace Hall to show prospective and current students the range of modeling and prototyping capabilities that come out of my computer industrial design class. Grants. Beretta Sponsored Studio, $30,000. CADC Seed Grant, 2019, $5,000. Arduino Equipment Initiative, $3,000. And the Center for Construction Innovation and Collaboration, $5,000. These funds, plus a previous seed grant, gives me close to $50,000 of funding received benefiting the School of Industrial and Graphic Design. Works in progress. The 3 topics above are a book that I'm working on, a year-long study that will be transitioned into a paper, and a collaborative effort with the nursing and biomechanics faculty to gain a large external grant. The writing and illustration of this book takes a challenging and complex topic of football penalties and communicates them in a playful, informative manner. I wanted this document to read more like a bedtime story and less like a rule book. My grit study of summer ops students evolved into a year-long examination of how grit affects student performance in the sophomore year. I used 2 metrics to gauge a measure of grittiness: a 10-question passion and perseverance test and an activities test. While the 10-question grit test is a good indicator, previous experience applying grit from past activities seems to be a stronger predictor to advancing to the second-year studio. It'll be interesting to see how these selected gritty students performed in an atypical online studio format. I'm currently working with David Cromley, School of Nursing, and Joe Ellen Sefton from the Warrior Research Center to develop a container that prolongs the life of fresh blood in foreign operations. There are big grant implications with the Department of Defense if the proposal is accepted. Service. I participated as a reviewer in both the IGP and the ePortfolio projects. I've worked with Crystal Jalil to produce promotional student work that is sent to over 150 design companies, corporations, and firms each year. And lastly, I worked with Catherine Buck and Courtney Wyndham on delivering short design workshops to Chambers County high school students. Certainly the heaviest project I've ever taken on. I worked with Whitney Hale from Facilities to create a coffee table for the Gavin Research Center. It was a huge team effort with David Gowan, Robert Capps, Cayman Frederick, and Ian Lee. Facilitating an Auburn tailgate falls right in line with the vibes of Ben Bush. So hosting a CADC tailgate once a year is an interesting way for me to serve the college and create connections between students, faculty, and alumni. Serving as the IDSA faculty coordinator has involved some flexibility given the parent organization's changing leadership. I continue to be involved through reviewing papers for the educational symposium, guiding our elected student representatives, and submitting various student work. The Student Merit Awards are probably the most forward-facing of the activities that I do in this role, bringing in professional designers as judges and creating a platform where students have 8 minutes to share the things that they achieved during their time at Auburn University. This year's winner is Ladong Chen, and we look forward to seeing how he performs against a national competition. Another activity that I get to engage in is Designing Green, where I offer challenges that revolve around teamwork and sustainability for short design sprints during the spring semester. I've volunteered with the Way to Serve nonprofit since my time as a freshman at Auburn University. This year, they appointed me to their advisory board to help with design and communication. I've also given my talents to the Greenville baseball team, developing their branding and creating stencils for the use on their fields prior to games. During the last 2 months, I've been able to serve my community by working with the team of engineers and designers from the university and produce PPE face shields for East Alabama Medical Center and for the Department of Corrections. Together, we created more than 1,500 face shields. Then the project got a little more personal, as my wife, who works in therapy, started treating COVID patients. I was able to create frames for both the occupational and physical therapy departments at East Alabama Medical Center. If you want to see more of my content, you can visit my website, public school, PUBLIK school.com, or my Instagram, samepublic_school. Thank you so much for your time.